Welcome to the SCIF. I'm pre-taping this on Thursday afternoon. I'm here in Savannah meeting sources and doing some political work and building the network for the Georgia Record, our Georgia paper. Savannah is one of the most important ports in the country. You can see a large container ship coming through as I speak, and that's the port off in the distance there in the background. But this is a major military hub. It's a major economic hub. The nuclear plant is here, and it's a very important area that we're going to report on a lot more. So we're going to put this on the Georgia Show, and just wanted to show you that we are in Savannah building our network, and we'll be doing a lot more reporting here in the future. So hope you enjoyed the SCIF today. It's pre-taped for Friday because we'll be traveling tomorrow. Thank you very much. So Savannah has a lot of crime. It's one of the big areas that we're going to be working on as far as reporting on and telling people the city is in trouble. I grew up here, and it's a real problem for the people who are living in Savannah. There are shootings. The city is not safe. It's run by a long-term Democratic regime which is milking the city for money, a lot of corruption, and it needs to be reported on and outed and fixed. And we're going to try to do that over the next decade with the Georgia Record and with our media company here in Georgia. So thank you for joining us today. We'll be, hope you enjoy the show.
Io porto con me una foto di un bambino musulmano che nella visita in Libano stava lì aspettando con un cartello dicendo benvenuto Papa e poi in questa ultima parte, diciamo, della guerra è stato ucciso lui, no? Sono tante le situazioni umane e penso che dobbiamo avere la capacità di pensare in questa forma. E come Chiesa dico di nuovo, se come pastore non posso essere a favore della guerra e vorrei incoraggiare tutti a fare gli sforzi per cercare risposte che vengono da una cultura di pace e non di odio.
Team EDC, you changed the Department of Defense to the Department of War. Would you consider changing the name again to the Department of Peace, since that's what we're all after?
Well, that's the pursuit. It's a great question, actually. You go from defense to war because you want to be proactive about peace through strength. And really, I gave a speech in front of generals about what the ethos of the War Department is all about, because I wanted to go through every echelon of this department. It means something. It's not just words. And when you fight a war the right way, the idea is on the other side you bring about peace. That is what we'd like to see the most. In fact, I once did a video about the one institution that should win the Nobel Peace Prize every single year is the United States military, because we are the guarantor of the safety and security of, not just of our country, but of a lot of people in this world.
Second, you know, I've heard you talk a lot about bombing.
We'll see.
Sorry?
We'll see.
Okay. I've heard you talk a lot about bombing people and places, and when you give these orders to carry out this extreme level of violence, what's going through your mind and your body? Do you have like an adrenaline rush? Are you scared? Do you feel like you're on a power trip? Just walk us through and paint us a picture of what it feels like mentally and physically.
It's a very TMZ question. My only thought process is to ensure that our warfighters have everything they need to be successful, defeat and destroy the enemy, and they come home. I want them to feel empowered, to have every authority they need within our rules and within our law to bring maximum violence to the enemy. Because war is violent, war requires doing difficult things, but I want our people to feel empowered, so it's our guys that come home and their guys that do not. There's a lot of talks. You saw I would call it a silly conference in Europe last week, where they got together and talking about maybe doing something eventually when things are done. Those are not serious efforts yet. We would welcome that. We would welcome a serious European effort to do something about this strait and this passage, considering it's their energy capabilities that are most at stake. I think it's a wake-up call. We are not counting on Europe, but they need the Strait of Hormuz much more than we do. and might want to start doing less talking and having less fancy conferences in Europe and get in a boat. This is much more their fight than ours. Ensuring if there's attempts to recklessly and irresponsibly lay more mines, we're going to deal with that. It's a violation of the ceasefire. So transit is occurring, much more limited than anybody would like to see, and with more risk than people would like to see. But that's because Iran is doing irresponsible things.
Welcome back to the SCIF. We're finishing up our trip to Savannah, Georgia, although we'll be back. We're going to be doing a lot of reporting here over the next years, actually. We think this is a very important area of the country, and we want to highlight it for people with the port, the military facilities, and possible shipbuilding industry that could come to this area of the United States. I've got a great show for you today. We're going to talk with Promethean Action and what's going on geopolitically. They're having a big event in D.C. this next week. And we're going to also talk with two South African ladies, Brendi Wells, one of them you know. Sonéll van Niekerk is also going to join us. She is in the United States, has filed for asylum, but she was predated before the executive order from Trump. And a lot of this group are having problems getting their applications through. So we're going to highlight this, and hopefully it'll get to the right people. We still think there's nefarious actors in the U.S. government who are trying to prevent white South Africans from coming into the United States. They're Christian, they're white. That's not what the Matrix wants here, obviously. So we're going to continue to report on this with Brendi, who's fantastic in providing guests for us from South Africa with the genocide of Christians in that nation. Let's do the mission brief. Today is April 24th. I'm your host, Todd Wood. Here's your mission brief. Ceasefire extended in Lebanon. We're probably going to be in Beirut soon to discuss this in person with our team on the ground there. So we'll talk about that a little later in the show. EPA sued over poison in oats. Did you know this? That your oatmeal may have poison in it that you're feeding your kids. It probably does. DHS sugar babies who are out flaunting themselves, making money off old men. Iran threatens shipping in the Strait. Again, Trump is dealing with this and continuing the blockade. And homeschooling is attacked in Connecticut. The commies in Connecticut don't like you being able to tell your kids exactly what's happening, so they're coming after homeschooling. Very disturbing news, but a lot going on today. Stay with us in the SCIF. We'll be right back after this break.
Well, in the case of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, these are two medications that have been FDA approved for use in humans for decades. They are very, very inexpensive. Interestingly, available over the counter in almost every other country other than the US and Canada. You can just walk into a pharmacy and buy them like we buy Tylenol in much of the world because they're that safe. And we've known for decades that ivermectin has very strong antiviral properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and both ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are what we call zinc ionophores. They help to move zinc from the bloodstream into the cell, which is where it needs to be in order to fight off a virus. So lots of application for these, and we have every reason to believe that those drugs also will likely have some efficacy against H5N1 or a number of other respiratory viruses that we may meet down the road.
If you haven't noticed, gold has reached a new high, all-time highs actually, and keeps going up every day. Why is that? It's because precious metals are a long-time historical store of value. And if you own a portfolio and you have assets in the fiat currencies, i.e. stocks, bonds, cash, or whatever, you're vulnerable to hyperinflation, which is coming as our debt explodes another trillion every 90 days. It's really scary. So how do you protect yourself? Go to Advisor Metals. If you look on any of our cdm.press sites, about halfway down, there's an ad for Advisor Metals. Click on it, fill out the form for your contact info, and Ira Bishotsky will contact you and talk to you. It's an easy conversation. There's no sales pitch. He's completely verified by us. He has a regulatory background we've checked into. We've checked with his bankers. We've checked with his IRA custodians for metals, and we can highly recommend Advisor Metals and IRA. So go to Advisor Metals. If you call them directly, tell them we sent you at CDM, and he'll definitely take care of you. But protect your portfolio because you really need to. It's coming. Thank you. Okay, let's talk about some stories. Now, I want you to also make sure you know that we're on podcast. If you miss the show, you can check it in your car, turn it up to 1.5 times like I usually do to get through podcasts, but you can catch us and get your news that you need and get it later in the day when you actually have time to consume it. So we'll be back in the studio Monday, but I think maybe not. Maybe we'll be traveling. We don't know yet. Everything's really fluid with the Pentagon, and I really appreciate you guys. I mean, we're trying our best to get you the news no matter where we are. We could be in D.C., we could be in Beirut. So we are going to continue to provide the best overview of what's happening in the world and make this the best intelligence show out there. So I want to just talk about a few stories on that vein. This one, you can watch it on armedforces.press. Iranian forces are threatening shipping in the Gulf. They put out a video boarding a tanker in the Strait of Hormuz with their army of fast boats. They've been highlighting this, and Trump has talked about it, that he may go after these small attack boats, which they put out a show of force of, multiple waves of them attacking ships. So again, this is on the radar screen of the Pentagon, and we'll try to ask a question on that in a Pentagon brief. I'm sure it'll be asked today, which we'll put out. Next story, Iran and Lebanon extend the ceasefire for 3 weeks. Let me get that story up here. Trump is trying to find a good deal with Hezbollah in the south, but the guys on the ground there, there's two diametric opposite forces trying to gain power in southern Lebanon, which is the only Christian country in the Middle East, and why we continue to go there, and why we'll be there again soon, meeting with our team on the ground. But the ceasefire is extended for 3 weeks. That's confirmed. All right, glyphosate in your oats. This is not cool. You may be feeding your child poison. The levels are very high. Why that is, why the Trump administration continues to allow this, we don't know. But it's another failure in our point from the Trump administration. But there are groups suing the EPA over these limits. So maybe there's a method to the madness in Trump's way he's dealing with a lot of this stuff. This one is disturbing. A senior DHS counterterrorism official was suspended over her sugar baby. Check this photo out. Great, right? She was making hundreds of thousands of dollars with men as a sugar baby while she's a DHS official. Just really amazing. Amazing world we live in. All right, next story. They're going after homeschooling in Connecticut. You can get this at the ConnecticutSentinel.com. The commies in Connecticut don't like you being able to train your child the way you want to, away from their indoctrination in the schools with tranny and all that stuff, DEI, all Black Lives Matter, all of that in Connecticut is on steroids in the schools, and they don't like you being able to get away from it. So they don't want you to be able to train your own children. All right, we're going to take another break. We'll be right back, and we've got a lot of great guests for you today. So stay with us on the SCIF.
Nuclear wasn't a product that was developed and to sell, really. It really was a journey to get me well after my experience trying to immigrate and get married to an American citizen in order to to get my green card. Towards the end, they send you for a medical, and that's where they sat me down and gave me 16 vaccines in one sitting. At the time, I knew when I was going through it that it's probably not good, but I didn't realize that I'm about to go through the worst health experience of my life. And that's when I went on this journey and understand that nutrition is actually your medicine. I've always heard the old people say your food's in your garden, but we didn't get it. And your body is always trying to heal itself. I mean, you know, when you cut yourself in a couple of days, it heals. And that is the process of homeostasis. Your body is always trying to, every cell in your body is always healing itself. And just like anything, if you bake a cake or you build a house, you need the right ingredients to achieve the result. Now, if you don't have the correct nutrition and you're not eating the correct food, it's like trying to build a house without bricks. Now, a lot of people, they say, what does nuclear do? Nuclear itself does nothing. It's not designed to do anything. Your body does the work. It gives your body all the things it needs balanced in, and it works together to deliver the correct nutritional supplement that you need as a human being to function normally.
It's finally here, our second annual mega sale. This sale only comes around once a year, so take advantage of the best offers ever while you can. For example, save 50% on our Giza Dream bed sheets, as low as $29.98. And for the first time ever on TV, My Pillow mattresses and My Pillow mattress toppers, as low as $99.98. And you save 50% on our Lux Pure 6-piece towel sets, regular $69.98. Now only $39.98. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, regular $49.98, on sale for $17.98. Wait on it, mega sale only $14.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our second annual mega sale. But wait, there's more. To make the mega sale even more special, when you order right now, your order's going to ship absolutely free.
Well, we're not in the studio, obviously. We're in beautiful Savannah, Georgia, doing some reporting here. And I'm very honored to have two women who are very impressive. And Brendi Wells, the audience knows, but Sonéll is a South African who I'm going to let Brendi introduce. Thank you for coming on, ladies.
Thank you so much, Todd. Let me introduce Sonéll. Sonéll is a South African-born native who came into America applying for asylum in May 2022. And that is the reason why we are talking to you in the advent when President Trump signed the Executive Order 14204 to grant South Africans, the minority South African group who's currently being targeted, to flee to America for asylum. But the problem is that executive order is not retroactive. So I am going to hand over to Sonéll, let her explain the situation. But the plea today is that President Trump will hear us, because a lot of South Africans has fled the country over the last 30 years. And yes, we are very grateful to President Trump that he's recognized the problem, but the problem has been there for a long time now. And there are people currently in America that has applied for asylum years ago that are being targeted for removal. So over to you, Sonéll.
Thank you so much, Brendi. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me and inviting me on, Todd. So yes, we came here legally with work visas and everything. And when our situation changed, we realized it was truly unsafe for us to return, and we applied for asylum. Fast track forward to February of 2025, President Trump signed Executive Order 14204, I think that was the one. And we were incredibly excited because that was our breakthrough. Because applying for asylum in 2022, we still hadn't received any interview date, any callbacks about our applications or anything. And we thought that his executive order would actually include the South Africans who applied for asylum. Unfortunately, that was not the case. And just over a year later, we are still waiting. Hundreds, possibly thousands of South Africans who followed the legal pathway of applying for asylum are still left in limbo in the system.
So, Sonéll, you haven't had any response from the system at this point from your asylum application. Is that correct?
None. That's correct. Yes.
Well, anybody else in the group? Just none.
We have had some of them who've gone for interviews. At the beginning of, or at the end of 2025, we had one family that were approved. Yesterday, I heard of someone else that was approved in January of this year. But those who applied before the executive order have not been invited for interviews, or if they have, they haven't received any adjudication of it yet either. Those who applied after the executive order was signed have been approved, but ever since then, or before that, no one heard anything back yet.
So now I remember,
Yeah,
sorry, can I just quickly pivot the
Yeah,
question? Yeah. So now when we were having a discussion in the group about 2 weeks ago, quite a few of the people in the group actually indicated to me that there are removal proceedings in place already. Can you just tell us more about that?
Some of them are facing removal proceedings. I am unsure of the details of their situations. So what happens is if you land with a USCIS officer who does not think that your fear is credible, they refer you to the court, and then the court ultimately decides whether you stay or go. But some of them have been put into removal proceedings.
So, Brendi, I saw this morning that he's upping the number per year from 7,500 to 10,000 South Africans a year to come in. But you have tried to get in touch with certain areas of the administration with no success. Am I correct?
Totally correct. I have tried pretty much every avenue. You remember how desperate I sounded when I contacted you eventually. Mm-hmm. I have spoken to quite a few lawyers, immigration lawyers, high-level immigration lawyers who they are all gung-ho for a while, and then it just get the little note that says, oh, it's actually not my area of expertise. I'm also aware of a South African that didn't go through the process of the immigration or the intake in South Africa. He just flew here on a visitor's visa, or I don't know actually what visa he came in on. And when he landed, applied for asylum, and they actually arrested him. And as far as I know, he's still in jail. That was reported by Colonel Chris Wyatt. Yeah. So it's a very interesting situation because we now know that President Trump recognizes the threat and that it is real, contrary to mainstream media who's trying to pretend that this is not happening. And you and I have spoken over the last how many years where we have documented the murders, the targeting, the absolute chaos that our people are experiencing. And if you look at the South Africans coming in, because I know immigration is a big deal, but none of them are dependent on welfare. I mean, obviously, they're just asking for a hand up, not a handout. But pretty much everybody that has managed to make it through the process has become self-sufficient. And our cultures are so aligned we are just so grateful to be in America that we just want to be a part of it. And the problem is that President Trump recognizes the threat. He has upped the numbers to that extent, but there are people in America that has built lives. I know personally of 2 or 3 of them that actually started a farm. They are already supplying food to their communities, and they are facing removal procedures. I have those documents with me that I can forward on to you. And that is my concern, is that President Trump knows this is a problem. He has recognized the threat, and we are not asking for anything. We're just asking that the executive order can go retroactive and include the people that applied for asylum prior to the actual signing of the executive order.
My sense is, I mean, we're seeing this in a lot of areas in the government where there are people inside the government who have a different agenda than the president. And my sense is this is what you're dealing with, is a bureaucracy that doesn't want this to happen, even though the president says he does. So what are your next steps, Sonéll? Any legal strategy that you have?
Currently, I personally don't have a legal strategy. I've really just been out there on social media trying to get the attention of the right people in the high up positions, like President Trump, like the vice president, like Marco Rubio, the press secretary. I've really been working at getting their attention, and some of it has helped, but we have heard no response yet at all.
Tell us about your farm. You have a farm, correct?
We don't have a farm.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We came here. Yeah, no, that's totally fine. That's how we started, though.
Okay.
We came here working on a farm. We're so grateful for the farmer who helped us come over here. And then once the work ended, the goal was to work for him up until we become citizens, and the work just ran out, and we needed to make another plan. And unfortunately, South Africa is just way too dangerous to go back to. So we applied for asylum, but my husband actually works as a cook at our local hospital. And I have been a para educator to a student who has learning challenges, who is deaf and hard of hearing. And he is actually graduating now after he's made a ton of progress. But I will be starting out as a CNA next month at our local nursing home. So we work hard at building our community and being part of our community. I'm also the vice president of our business chamber of commerce in our town, which is a great privilege and an honor to have been elected as such. So we bring positivity to our communities.
Brendi, what are you hearing on the ground in South Africa against the white population? Are you hearing any more bad things going on?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, just this morning, I was in touch with people in Nailstrom, which is a town in South Africa, who has just suffered a vicious home invasion. They beat the wife to a pulp. She's in hospital. The husband has a knife wound. But the point is that this has been going on for years. I mean, I documented farm murders. I showed pictures, and even that, that video that President Trump played in the White House to Julius Malema. In the face of that evidence, they deny it. But what has happened as a result of President Trump stepping in and the tremendous propaganda and hatred towards President Trump in the mainstream and in South Africa, there is a huge counter communist narrative that is, every time you post evidence of, there was a farm murder again, I think a week ago, Sonéll, if I remember. And I mean, it's just horrific. The pictures went up on X, and then these people come on. I don't know if they bots or what they are, but they just come in and villainize and say that it's not happening and that we are just making this up. And so there's not just that, but as a result, it's activated quite a large amount of people in South Africa that is communist mindset. And so the farm attacks and the the violence is increasing exponentially. And specifically the ones who are going for these interviews at the American embassies, they target them there, and it's the actual government targeting them. About two months ago, the officials working for the American embassy that were processing the applications literally had to flee because the border control of South Africa entered the premises and started heckling the people that were waiting in queue to be interviewed, and just calling them cowards and idiots, and they must just run away. And after all these years where they've been telling us, go back to Europe, you don't belong in Africa, now that we're trying to get out, they don't want us to leave. Because the South African white minority, yes, we're a minority, but we pay the most. We pay 80% of the taxes. Sure. So they don't want to let go of the cash cow, but they want to kill us. So it's the weirdest dichotomy I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. It's very similar in other Christian countries. Yeah, go ahead, Sonéll.
Yeah. And sorry, Todd, not just that. I mean, the threats we receive on X and social media platforms are insane. These people think they can just go on there and literally threaten us on these social platforms. And yeah, they feel safe behind their keyboards, but it's still, we're not even in South Africa anymore, and they threaten us. In South Africa, I was told to my face, I was surrounded by a group of Black South Africans, and they told me to my face, you Boers, go back to heaven, or go back to Europe. They want to get us to heaven. Go back to Europe or we will kill you. My son, when he was in kindergarten, he was 5 years old, a Black child threatened him by telling him he's going to drill a piece of wood into his head. Where does a 5-year-old get that unless it's taught to them at home?
Sure, yes.
Also in schools,
go ahead, Brendi.
My daughter is still there, and this is one of the biggest threats, and this is what keeps me up at night, is the threats that I get. I don't mind. I've been targeted since forever, but since I started speaking out, and so I am bulletproof by now. You can pretty much say whatever you want to me by now, but they just told me, and I will send you the screenshots, that they know where my children are. They are in the process of applying also for this asylum. So we just praying they get out in time. But my grandson, he is in standard 4, which is what, grade 6? Yes. Yeah, and he plays rugby, and he's the only white kid in the rugby team, but he loves to play. And they actually tackled him on the rugby ground this last Saturday. His knee is absolutely shot. He's wearing a brace, and they beat him up. And they said to him, he must get off the rugby field. He doesn't belong there. Now, this kid is, 12, and he's absolutely devastated. He doesn't understand what the hell, what did he ever do to deserve that? But that's the kind of targeting they do. They single you out just because of the color of your skin. If that's not racism, I don't know what is,
Yeah.
So what else do people need to know, Brendi and Sonéll? Anything?
Well, just we need a lawyer, an immigration lawyer. I have reached out to quite a few high-level ones that, like I said, they are all in, they are ready to go, and then something happens. Todd, I don't know if they're targeting them or if they're threatening them or what is happening. But our plea is, please, we are desperately seeking somebody that can just help us through this loophole, because that's what it is. It's a loophole. The threat is real. The president has acknowledged the threat is real. He signed an executive order. It's real. But there's just these limbo people, and there's a loophole, and we just want that loophole closed. We're not asking for handouts. We're just asking, give us a chance and let us help you fight. We've already been through a communist takeover. We know what you are facing in America right now. Let us be your allies, because we know we've survived. We've survived 30 years in a hellhole being targeted. And it's only through the power of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ that we have made it this far. So we're just asking, for this loophole to be closed. And anybody out there that has the ear, that has some advice, please reach out to us. We just want to get this done. Thank you.
Yes.
That's
Yeah,
that's probably why they don't want you here, Brendi, because you're affected.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Sonéll. Go ahead.
Yeah, I
Sonéll.
want to reiterate that we do not need what they are giving the refugees. We are rooted in our communities. We have jobs, we have insurance, we have everything that we need. We have homes, we have everything. All we need is we are petitioning to the president to please include us in his executive order by saying that those who came here legally from South Africa, who check all the requirements, are included and are granted asylum.
One more thing, sorry,
Sure.
just to add
No,
to
go ahead.
that, is there's quite a few of these South African asylum seekers that has had their work permits revoked. So they are here, they are so scared to be sent back because they have nowhere to go, and they will be murdered if they go back, because there's a target on every single South African that has gone to America, because now you're evil, you're MAGA, and you're a Trump fanatic. You know the drill. But
Yeah.
these people have had their work permits revoked, and that is the worst thing that can happen, because how can you survive if you cannot provide for your family? And that's all we ask. We just want an opportunity to work. Let us work. We don't need handouts. Let us just work. That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. If there's any updates, please let us know.
We will. Thank you so much, Todd.
Okay.
Thank
Take
you,
care,
Todd.
guys.
Thank you for having me.
Bye, please.
Well, in the case of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, these are two medications that have been FDA approved for use in humans for decades. They are very, very inexpensive. Interestingly, available over the counter in almost every other country other than the US and Canada. You can just walk into a pharmacy and buy them like we buy Tylenol in much of the world because they're that safe. And we've known for decades that ivermectin has very strong antiviral properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and both ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are what we call zinc ionophores. They help to move zinc from the bloodstream into the cell, which is where it needs to be in order to fight off a virus. So lots of application for these, and we have every reason to believe that those drugs also will likely have some efficacy against H5N1 or a number of other respiratory viruses that we may meet down the road.
If you haven't noticed, gold has reached a new high, all-time highs actually, and keeps going up every day. Why is that? It's because precious metals are a long-time historical store of value. And if you own a portfolio and you have assets in the fiat currencies, i.e. stocks, bonds, cash, or whatever, you're vulnerable to hyperinflation, which is coming as our debt explodes another trillion every 90 days. It's really scary. So how do you protect yourself? Go to Advisor Metals. If you look on any of our cdm.press sites, about halfway down, there's an ad for Advisor Metals. Click on it, fill out the form for your contact info, and Ira Bishotsky will contact you and talk to you. It's an easy conversation. There's no sales pitch. He's completely verified by us. He has a regulatory background we've checked into. We've checked with his bankers. We've checked with his IRA custodians for metals, and we can highly recommend Advisor Metals and Ira. So go to Advisor Metals. If you call them directly, tell them we sent you at CDM, and he'll definitely take care of you. But protect your portfolio because you really need to. It's coming. Thank you. Welcome back to the SCIF. I'm here with Marsha Bowen, and I am on the road in Savannah, Georgia, down on the port. So you may get a little noise here, but Marsha, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be on.
I wanted to talk to you again because I had such a good conversation with you at CPAC, and I wanted to get your take on what you see happening geopolitically, because a lot has happened since CPAC and the ceasefire's on, then it's off, then it's, back. Where do we stand on all this, in your opinion?
I think what President Trump is doing is he is arranging the ability to bring a force of government into Iran that can work with the United States. And in one of his Truth Socials, he said, look, the government is fractured. It's very hard for them to communicate. So when he laid out his ceasefire, I think he decided that there was enough goodwill expressed that it was worth keeping up the negotiations. And I would say a good example of that, you might recall, is in one of his Truth Socials, Trump requested that the 8 Iranian women that were to be executed, I believe on Tuesday night, he said it would be very good if they would not be executed. Please, I would really appreciate your attention to this matter. And then it was announced that these 8 women would not be executed. 4 of them were allowed to go free, and 4 others are going to stay in jail for 1 month and then be freed. And I think that indicates that there is a moderate faction that is able to deliver, because that's going to be obviously what Trump is looking for. Can he negotiate with a party in Iran? And only he and his team know who they're negotiating with. So when you hear people talking, and the propaganda is so enormous, I really recommend people. I work with Promethean Action, and I think one of the best places you can go to get your updates is PrometheanAction.com, because as one of my friends put it, those who know don't talk. Those who talk don't know. So that's what you've got going on. So we don't try to put forward some as if we are in the inner circle of Trump's cabinet. We're not. But we know from 50 years of history that we've worked through and then studied decades and centuries of history, particularly on the British Empire. We have an ability to hypothesize. And I think our hypotheses have proven to be so stunningly correct on the question of the British Empire. And of course, when you're talking about Iran, you are talking about British Petroleum. You're talking about the British asset since 1908, I believe, when oil was first discovered there. I can't hear you, Todd.
Sorry, I had the mute button on because it was so loud here. Many people don't know that history, that, in the early 20th century, it was the British that controlled Iran. They installed the Shah. They removed Mossadegh, who was the democratically elected leader. And so it doesn't go back just to the revolution in 1979. It goes way back further than that. And this is British territory. You've mentioned this many times. Talk to us about this. And do you think this shutting down the Persian Gulf is impacting Europe in a way that is good for the United States?
Well, I think what Trump and his team are doing is, in a sense, they're shutting down the economy of Iran. I mean, Iran is losing $500 million a day in oil proceeds. And I think the Karg Island, as I understand, that their storage is almost full. So when it's full, what do? They have to shut off their oil operations, their oil rigs, and that then begins to damage the equipment. So there's a real time here in terms of, we're talking perhaps days, in which Iran really has to make some big decisions. I think it is working. I think what Trump is doing, you remember, he's not allowing the Iranian ships out or in. And of course, it's Europe, frankly, I think they've slit their own throat on their own energy policy going back decades and decades with this insane green agenda. So this, and the fact that when we've been so generous, if you will, in what we were giving to NATO all these years, decades, and then President Trump comes in and he starts to question, what are we giving this money for? Where is it going? And then, of course, demanding that they have to start stepping up to the plate in terms of their percentages. And then when we needed them, when Trump launched the military operation on February 28th, where were they? And Britain said, no, we aren't going to participate. Well, that I think sealed the deal. I think it just has made it clear that the British, the European Union, outside of a couple of very good countries like Hungary and Slovakia, you don't have nations. You have a globalized system that is either these nations are going to have to go back to sovereignty or they're going to be irrelevant in history.
You're exactly right. I've said many times that these leaders are working for someone else, not the people of their countries. So when I say harm Europe, I don't mean harm the European people. I mean,
Right.
bring down these governments because they're
Right.
trying to drag us into a war in Russia. And,
Right.
and I think that's part of what Trump's doing, saying you're not here when we needed you, because when they go to war with Russia, we don't want to go into Article 5 and have to support them in that conflict. So
Absolutely.
I think that's what's going on right here.
Yes, and of
So-
course you have movements in all of these nations of the European Union of leaders that are very much in the tradition of Trump. I would say, I would say Trump has really given inspiration to leaders around the world to step up against this globalized system and lead their people. So I think we're going to see some very interesting elections coming up. I think that the European people are really just like we became sick and tired of it here in the United States. The difference is we have a constitutional system. We are blessed.
Yes.
No country
Yes.
in the world has a republic as we do. So, but our example is it's like the light on the hill. It is shining an example for the whole world.
I agree. So I just, a lot of people, well, I wasn't for this war, but now that we're in it, I want us to come out in a way that's positive for our children's future and for the country. Tell me about your trip to DC next week. You have a lot going on.
Yes, Promethean Action has a series of teams going into DC. There's going to be about 8 of us, I would call full-time organizers, and another 8 people coming as supporters who've never done anything like this before. And we'll be going in April 27th through May 1st. And we will be going to all the Republican offices. We have appointments with several dozen offices already, and these were set up by constituents that would call the Washington office, go through the schedulers. There's a whole process to get these meetings set up. So we've had very good response on that, and we'll be going to do those meetings, but as well, we will be going to all the offices of the Republicans and some of the Democrats. In fact, we have a couple of meetings, I won't say right here now, but maybe if we get to talk again, I could tell you there's some very significant Democrats will be meeting there at their offices. And we will also be meeting with some congressmen. We have some meetings with them as well. We have our literature, our new one, our latest pamphlet is entitled Bye Bye Globalization, America is Back. And it documents what President Trump has succeeded in doing in the last year with the American System 2.0, which is one of the pamphlets we went, when we went last year, we brought with us on what Trump could do with the American System 2.0. Now we're coming back with, here's what he's done. And it was only just begun in terms of the manufacturing renaissance that's underway.
So is your goal to educate, the legislators on this issue?
Yes, and to make clear to them that their constituents back home want them to be a spear point for President Trump. We don't need these rhinos. And, I don't have to tell your audience who they are. But you know what we found? I've been twice last year to Washington, D.C., and it's interesting that many of their aides are young and very inquisitive, very open, much more than you might find in the congressman or woman themselves. And we've had some really excellent discussions with these people. And I think what we hope, here's my view. My view is we've championed the American system for 50 years plus. What I see President Trump doing is we laid the groundwork through decades of organizing campaigns. President Trump has picked up the ball. Much of it, how much of it is instinct and how much does he know of what we've done? I'll leave that for future analysis. But I know that our impact over the decades, and now even more so, because our Promethean Action YouTube channel has gone from 50,000 subscribers about 6 months ago to well over 500,000 subscribers and plus. So I really recommend people go to our YouTube, go to our website, PrometheanAction.com, and take advantage of the excellent intelligence we put together.
So people can find, what can they find on the website? And then I'll let you go. Last question.
Well, what you will find on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays are I think the most concise and strategic updates you're going to find from Susan Kokinda and Barbara Boyd. And then on Thursday is if you could take 2 hours as a live dialogue with Susan and with Barbara and with Adam, our webmaster. And questions come in, live from the audience. Some of our subscribers have sent in questions to be asked, but it gives the audience a chance to actually, kind of go through the ideas and the history of how we've come to the kind of hypotheses that have put us, I think, in the catbird seat in understanding the moment of history we're living in. So, and then we have a lot of other items on our website, including classes we do every Saturday and strategic updates we do every Monday. So we've got a lot going on our website.
Marsha, thank you very much. I have a feeling we'll have you back down the road. So appreciate your time.
Thank you,
today.
Todd. Good to
All
talk
right,
with you.
care.
Okay,
You
take
bet.
care.
I'm a naturopathic doctor. We are in the world of medicine very acquainted with many modalities, but probably the one most familiar with everybody would be two things: homeopathy and herbals or herbs, maybe some nutrients too, vitamins, minerals, that kind of thing. Now, we do know a lot about the drugs because we have to find out what drug you're taking affects you and what nutrient it depletes you of, because most every drug pharmacy product will deplete something. So we have been trained and we have a database that we can check into that says this is going to take your B12 away. The pharmaceutical company cannot patent organic substances made by the body. You're not born short of Advil. You're not born short of Ritalin.
Yeah.
You can be born short of insulin, right?
Mm-hmm.
The answers to staying healthy and keeping away from even SARS or any of those things getting into you is staying healthy.
Mm-hmm.
You and I get sick because our terrain gets out of balance. Well, that's the same thing in the soil. You and I are made from this thing called dirt. And when we get out of balance, we have the same thing happen. Weeds start to grow in our body. Right? And that's what we want in our body. We want nutrients that we don't understand how to get well enough yet because our suppliers are lacking knowledge on nutrient density foods.
So this is what
do?
drove you to develop
Well,
this, was your knowledge of this, right?
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You know that.
I'm excited to announce that we're having a huge sale on overstock and brand new products. For example, My Pillow per Kill bed sheets, every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. Our Perkel bed sheets are breathable, cool and crisp, and they're perfect for spring and summer. And check out Rev 7, the next generation of energy drinks. It tastes great, and it gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. Best of all, it's actually good for you. And for a limited time, try our 3-pack absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs, or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Perkel bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88. Twin size, full size, queen size, king sizes, all $29.88. Inventory is extremely limited at this price, so order now.
Hope you enjoyed us on the SCIF today. We'll be back Monday through Friday, 10 to noon Eastern, although we will be traveling most likely to Haiti and Beirut coming up soon, and then some other trips, which we'll tell you about as they develop. But CDM is becoming very impactful and credible, and has been credible, but is also well read by those in certain circles. So we are very proud of that, and we'll continue to bring you the credible news that we can generate for you overnight. By the way, support our sponsors. Make sure you check out cdm.press daily, several times a day. Hit some articles. That's the best thing you can do to support us. We'll see you next time. Thank you.